All right, so we're going to cover managing change in Office 365 rapid release world. Hopefully that's the session you were planning to attend. We're going to take you through a lot of different areas of what some of the investments have been over the last year. I'm Andy O'Donnell, Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Office 365 team, and with me is Raj.
Yeah, I'm Raj. I'm one of the PM managers in Office 365 team, focused on change management investments. We're very excited to be here talking about some of the new things that we're going to announce today. And later, Mufi will be joining us for a couple of demos. So.
Great, thanks. So quickly, just the agenda. We're going to start with talking a little bit about why change is hard, why it's hard for you, why it's hard for us in the Office 365 world. We'll take a look at, we've been investing in change management for a while, and so talk a little bit about those previous investments. We'll talk about what's new, what are some of the things that we're releasing today into the service that will hopefully help improve your experience, and walk through some of the communications and toolkit, and we'll wrap everything together and kind of look at how do all of these pieces fit together for your role in helping be the change ambassadors in your organization and changing the way you manage change itself with the service. So when we think about change management, it is just one part of really our service management framework for Office 365. So once customers are deployed on Office 365, we really think that there's a framework that really helps you best manage the service and get the most value out of it. There are a set of areas that really are more around the day-to-day operations, and then there are opportunities to actually extend the service, integrate it with your business, your line of business apps, and actually get more value from it. And we consider that kind of how you really get the most effective use out of Office 365. So there are other sessions here at Ignite that cover more of these topics that you see on this slide. If you're interested in those, kind of curious, you can come to the Manage Office 365 booth, and we have a little printout that has those other sessions, and we'll kind of mention them throughout this today as well. Change is hard. It is. It's hard for all of us, whether personal lives, business, everything. We all struggle with it. There was a famous pre-Socratic philosopher in the 6th century BCE, Heraclitus, who summed it up very, very well. That no one ever steps in the same river twice, for he or she is not the same person, and it's not the same river. And so in this, in the Office 365 world, you can really think to extend that to if Office 365 is that river that's continuously flowing with new changes being released to you and your users, and you, the person, are your organization that is changing with new users, people leaving, more data, different systems that you want to interrupt with it. So both sides of both the river and you are always changing. So this sums it up pretty well, the challenge that we're addressing here with figuring out how to manage change in Office 365. So I want to talk just a little bit about sort of how the change and transformation is happening for the customers, and what we hear, and when we go out and talk with you and we talk with our partners who are helping customers transform to kind of an evergreen service model with Office 365, and how IT has had to evolve their models. So when you think about the traditional change management projects that IT would spin up every couple of years to help manage a new version, whether that was a new client, right, a new version of the Office client itself, or if it was a project to update the servers, right, Exchange 2007, Exchange 2010. And so those were typical, every 18, 36-month projects that had to be spun up, and evaluations would happen. And sometimes, the project would become even larger because they would skip a version, right? This was very common for organizations to skip a release. There wasn't budget, or it didn't make sense at the time to upgrade, and so you'd skip a release and end up maybe doing one project to upgrade those clients or that server every 6 or 7 years. So it created an even larger set of changes that had to be managed in a monolithic way, delivered all at once to your organization, to your users, thinking about things like AppCompat and user help and training and things of that nature. Now with Office 365, because of the evergreen service approach, it means that we're continuously iterating small, more minor changes continuously, gradually getting you there. It's an ongoing. There's no longer this need to do projects every couple of years to upgrade all your servers or your desktops. It's just a continuous update cadence, and that's really the change that as an organization, each of you has to kind of internalize and figure out. Okay, if I'm not spinning up a new project, do I have to have a team that's just always sort of operating at maybe a less large, of a pace, but it's always happening every week that there's new things that you have to incorporate. So that's the transformation you've been going through, and I'm going to let Raj talk a little bit about the transformation of scale and what that means for us delivering updates.
Thanks, Andy. So just a reminder to folks here, when we talk about scale, what that means. We are really talking about, this is what we're talking about. This is global scale, hundreds of millions of users, tens of thousands of servers, some change being rolled out almost every time, all the time, right? Some services updating. So that is what we're talking about. We are really talking about automation that works at scale and distributed, working through all of our data centers across the world. We don't have a dedicated operations anymore. Everybody in the development we moved to DevOps model. So every developer is making a change and working with the service. We are always looking to see every change that we make is making our service better. So that is a goal. But there are thousands of changes going on, and depending on how our customers are using the service, depending on so many different constraints around machine failures or network failures, we have a lot of issues that we work through as we roll out every single change. So that is kind of the problem you're after. So deploying change at scale, it really is, our surface is really too big to be partitioned to manage traditionally, as you have done in the past in on-premises world. It's not really managed at a tenant level. We are talking about a huge multi-tenant service. Again, everything it's all code that's handling it. We're talking about tens of data centers across the regions all over the world, and it's all done through our data center service fabric. There's a lot of code running, pushing our change through the best change through as fast as we can, and constantly looking at various signals as we roll out the changes. Things like how our customers are using it, what is the client telemetry is saying, what is our performance metrics. We're constantly monitoring that. We're looking at our support signal. Is there any spike in our support call volume, potentially caused by service updates? All of that data is used to make decision on how we are going to keep propagating the change. So, like I said, the goal really is every engineer making a change really to make the service better, make the customer experience better for our customers. So, Andy is now going to talk through this service change management process.
Great, thanks, Raj. So when it comes to our service change management process, we really want to make sure that we're thinking about all of these 4 areas simultaneously. We represented it as a continuous motion, but it's also things are happening simultaneously and on top of one another. And so it really starts off with all of the planning that the teams are doing for the various improvements they want to make to each, whether it's just changing a button, whether it's changing a string, whether it's updating the API to collect different data. Then from there, we think about the deployment, right? How this is what Raj was just referring to, and how we actually get those changes out to your actual service, right? And there's lots of aspects to that, of course, but the rings in the first release is really what we're here talking about today, which is how do we actually get move and validate each of those improvements. We also have policies around how we then communicate those changes, right? So as it's being deployed, how does that trigger the set of communications that need to happen, whether those communications are to customers or whether they're internal communications. There's processes for both aspects of how change is managed inside of Office 365. And then lastly, it's about making sure that we have the right areas to get the data back in, so we can take your feedback, take support escalations, take what we're seeing in social media, what we're seeing from our telemetry and analytics, and actually improve the process, both improve the individual feature, if there's a problem with that change that we made, and improve the process itself. So you might think, okay, this is great. You've got one big centralized process that Office 365 uses to roll out changes. Well, as you know, Office 365 is really a federated service. So you actually have lots of services that are running and managing change. And so you might think, oh, okay, so really you've got it for each of the individual services kind of run this change management process. Well, that's not really how it works either, because Office 365 is a highly distributed service, right? So it's each and every single feature team, and this is how we scale it to all of the different components of Office 365 and collect that data and are continuously iterating and delivering changes literally every day. So now that you have a little bit of background of kind of how the transformation is on the customer side, how it is from a service side, I want to talk a little bit about the investments that we've been making over the last year or so to improve change and just remind everyone kind of where we've come and then help set the guideposts of where we're going from there. So looking at the roadmap, what we've got, we started off about a year ago, starting with addressing some of the concerns around communication, right? We wanted to make it so it was more clear when you needed to take action inside of your tenant and do something. We needed you to do some sort of maintenance on the service in order for it to keep operating normally. And so for that, we wanted to update Message Center for that. I'm going to get in front of this speaker. And then the first release was about not quite a year ago where we initially announced first release. So first release is the ability to opt in to receive some of the significant experiences first. And we'll talk a little bit more about what went through there. Also, we released the roadmap so that you would have more visibility at roadmap.office.com. So you could actually see, okay, what is Microsoft planning to do to Office 365? How can I see what those updates are? We made some improvements to the roadmap, and just this spring we released a new version of the Office 365 admin app so that all of you with your phones that you're taking pictures of the slide with, you can actually download the app and check how your service is performing, look at Message Center messages, see service health, look at support tickets, manage your users, all from your mobile device. So how did you respond? So we've had a great response with first release. Over 10% of our customers have opted in. So I imagine if I asked right now, could you please raise your hand if you are in first release or have a tenant in first release? I want to see. That's about representative, probably a little higher than 10%, but that's what we've seen the data has shown us. So that's been really great to see that this is in fact useful in helping customers. And there's a lot of other feedback that I'll talk about too. Additionally, we've had over 300 Message Center posts. So we've spent a lot of targeted Message Center posts, and we've had a lot of those related to changes in the service. So since we sort of updated Message Center a year ago, we've been sending a lot of messages communicating changes coming to the service. And lastly, we have over 200 items now on the roadmap, and we're constantly adding new items several times. About every week, we add new items to the roadmap and update that. So again, we started out with I think it started with just over 50 items, and so it's continuously grown. So we're trying to be as transparent as possible about what those changes are that are coming to Office 365. So let's talk for a minute about what has happened with first release. So when we launched first release a year ago, it was really focused on delivering some of the more significant experience changes that were going to come to the service. And so it was focused on making sure that customers had early access to those, so you could kind of see how they worked and figure out if you needed to, have governance or if there was anything that it conflicted with that you had in your organization. And so we released all of these. Plus, there were some other smaller features that were released as well through first release. But these were kind of the major ones that were released and iterated on. And we got a lot of great feedback. I know, like the Office 365 video team, for example, made specific improvements to their mobile experience and to their other experiences based on feedback we got from first release customers. So that was really kind of an unexpected benefit that we got from all of you participating in first release. Was we actually got really valuable feedback that was actionable for the engineering teams. So we initially thought, oh, this will just be a good way for customers to test it, but it actually ended up having an additional benefit for us that it helped. Again, always good to have a good connection between customers and the product team. So great, that's what we've done. We've also continuously been working with you, meeting with customers at events like this, through focus groups, listening to your feedback in the Yammer network. And some themes have been bubbling up that we want to talk about. So one of the themes is, hey, I want more changes to come through first release. It's great that you do those big experiences, but there's other changes that are smaller that you're rolling out that I want to be able to see those too, because they sometimes have different impacts on my organization. The other was, hey, okay, first release, I can put my entire organization in it. That's okay for some organizations. Some customers created test tenants, but then that was kind of, that could be a little bit challenging because if you had a test tenant, you had to check that to see what the changes were like there. So you said, give me more granular controls for first release. We heard that the feedback, through the conversations on Yammer, we heard, the feedback was valuable. They liked, you enjoyed having that dialogue and engaging with engineering and providing, you could see the changes as the team iterated, you could actually see those. And then you said, hey, Message Center is nice, but sometimes I get a message and it's not, you tell me that a feature's coming, but it ends up coming 2 or 3 months later to my service. What can you do to make that a little bit more timely? So that's another theme we've been hearing. And then the last thing is around visibility. The roadmap. Roadmap is helpful, but there's still changes that sometimes I don't see on the roadmap. Is there anything you can do to improve that experience? So these are some of the themes we've heard from you, and I hope we're not necessarily addressing every single thing completely, but we're going to have a lot of improvements that talk to each of these today. And so we hope that this is a good guidepost for what we've heard, and this will continue to be a dialogue with you. And we want your feedback. So again, at the end of the session, you can come to the booth. I'll be working right after this session, in fact, and we'll hopefully continue to iterate and improve this based on your feedback. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Raj.
Yeah. So, keep the feedback coming. As you can see, we are listening to your feedback. We are constantly looking at our roadmap. How can we make it better? Obviously, we are not announcing, we are solving all the problems today for all of the feedback that you gave us and what Andy summarized. But you will see in the next part of the presentation how we are starting to act on some of those feedback in terms of real product investments. So starting with evolving first release. So as Andy said, first release has been great, very successful, but we are today giving you more controls. And for the first time here, today we are announcing that we are adding a new option, part of first release. It's called Select People. So this is going to be super useful for medium to large organizations who are not going to put through the entire tenancy in first release. So the goal of this is really to not to have a separate tenant, just we want to have the same tenant in production. You can select a set of users, IT admins and power users, who will receive the changes first before it gets rolled out broadly to the entire organization. So select people to preview updates so you can prepare your organization. You can work on what kind of comms you want to send out to the entire organization, if you want to prepare some training videos and things like that. So we are very, very excited. The teams have been working really hard on this for the last few months, and we're very excited to actually announce the launch of this today. It's starting to roll out as we speak right now. It should start hitting some of your, all of the tenants in the next few weeks. So that's very exciting. Thank you so much. Second thing we're announcing today is Office 365 Pro Plus preview bits are going to be available for download through first release. You would have seen some of the announcements yesterday in the keynote about how Office 16 new bits are being refreshed, and this is an example of where we can actually, not just 1 or 2 services, we can bring our entire ecosystem of all the services in Office 365 to be part of that. That's really our goal. We're starting to make that a journey, as you can see. Today it supports Exchange Online, Office 365 Admin Center, Office 365 navigation bar that you're all familiar with now, the app launcher and things like that. So that's very exciting. You would have also heard about Office Wave for Business that I think Julia demonstrated yesterday in the keynote. That's a very exciting new product, new service, part of Office 365. That is starting to also roll out through first release Ring starting today. So These are the big announcements we are making today. So what stays the same? It's still an opt-in feature. It's available to all the customers of Office 365. It's based on the existing tenant, and it's fully supported. It's SLA-backed features. Later in the presentation, I'll be walking through how we think about rolling changes. You'll realize that this first release is not really a test program or anything like that. We are talking about features that we feel are production ready, that will work at scale and will benefit from large exposure to our customers. So that all remains the same. So to show all of this great work that the team has been working on in the last few months, I'm going to invite Mufi to do the demo of this. Thanks, Mufi. Do you want to go to the next slide?
Thanks, Raj. So today I'm going to show you how to enable first release for select people in your organization, and also show you how first release, as being part of it, you can see different experiences from the rest of the world. So first, I'm going to go into the shoes of Andy. Andy is just a regular user in Contoso Inc. I'm going to go to this demo page that we built. Here you can see that the standard user tile on the left is checked blue, while the first release user is checked gray. Now I'm going to come back into the shoes of Mufi. Mufi is an IT admin for Contoso, and Mufi wants to enable first release for select people. So I'm going to go back as Mufi. To enable first release, you're going to go to the Office 365 Admin Center, and on the left-hand nav bar, under Service Settings, we're going to go to Updates. On this page, you will see two options, the Standard Release option and the First Release option that Raj and Andy were talking about. Under Standard Release, your organization will receive updates as we release them broadly. Under First Release, you can receive updates and changes early. You have two options under First Release. You can either select your entire organization, which is what exists today, or you can choose a select set of people. So let's go ahead and select people. On confirmation, a pane should open up for you to be able to add users to First Release. We've made it really easy for you to add people to First Release. In the search bar, you can simply search for a name or email address. I'm going to add Andy to this. As you type, the search will filter and autocomplete. You can simply select a name and hit save. It's as simple as that. For organizations that want to add multiple people at a time, you can use the bulk add people option. Bulk add simply takes a file of email addresses. You can download a sample file and build off of that. I'm going to show you a file that I've already built. It's simply a list of email addresses. And once you have the file ready, you can browse and add the file. When you hit next, we will go ahead and attempt to add all the email addresses to First Release. On the results page now, as you can see, there were 25 people in my file. I was able to add 24 of them, but on one of them, I had an error. You can see in the log file which email address went in error. So I messed up the name here, and so that failed. You can fix the file again and retry, or you can come back later to do that too. So now let's go back to Andy. In certain cases, this option can take about 24 hours to take updates. But let's go back to Andy, and we'll see if that experience that I showed you earlier has changed. I'm going to refresh the screen. All right. So as you can see here, the first release user box is now checked, highlighted blue, while the standard release is now gray. So today, I showed you guys how to enable first release for people, for your organization, and also showed how you can select how certain features appear. You'll see different experiences as part of first release. I'm going to hand it back to Raj now, who's going to talk about the different types of changes and how we release changes. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Murphy. Great work. So I think just we're going to run through a video here before we talk about changes. Yeah. Thanks.
Office 365 is an evergreen service, continually improving based on your feedback and needs. Office 365 lets you control how your organization receives those updates to better manage your service. There are two different options for how updates are released in Office 365. You and your colleagues will receive updates different based on whether you choose standard release or first release. If you choose standard release, an update will roll out to your organization a week at the earliest, but usually a few weeks after it's been released. In first release, you can choose either your entire organization or select people to receive updates early. Choosing the entire organization means that everyone using Office 365 will receive updates early. Choosing select people, you have the most control. You can select people to receive updates before everyone else, so that you can engage first release people to try out new features and prepare your organization for updates. Decide which option works best for you and your organization. Log into the Office 365 Admin Center, choose the Select People option, and start receiving updates early.
All right. Thanks, Andy, for that excellent video. So now I'm going to take a minute to explain the type of changes that we will actually roll through first release. The first one is Office 365 new experiences. This one I think all of you are familiar with. We talked about some of the new features that we rolled through in the last few months. Groups, Office 365 Groups, Delve, App Launcher, Declutter. These are new features, significant new features. And the goal here is really to iterate fast. These are kind of the features that are, when we start rolling out to first release, we feel like the feature is ready for broad adoption in first release type scale. But it's not necessarily fully complete, as in it's a minimum viable product when we start rolling out things, and we want we want to work with you, get your feedback, and keep the product, make the features better and better as we roll through that. So that's the goal here. There is the timeline by which this gets finished and gets rolled out broadly to your entire organization through the standard release. It will vary depending on the type of change, the complexity of the feature, the kind of feedback we are getting from you, how much time it takes for us to go fix and things like that. So there's really we don't have any particular promise on this will get rolled out in this many days or weeks, but the idea here is to iterate fast and have the community be part of our new significant product development. So the second type of, from a feedback, you wanted more changes to go through first release. So the next type of change we want to talk about today is service updates. We want to roll more changes through the service, through the first release. These could just be, small visible changes. Earlier, that was not going through first release. That was directly going to to the worldwide release. Performance improvements, security patches, bug fixes. All of these updates, service updates now, more of these type of changes will go through first release. Again, the goal here is to roll out as quickly as we can. We are not really going to wait and iterate. We already know it's a packaged one single update. We want to just roll it out as fast as we can. If everything is good, if you're not breaking anything, if you don't hear any negative feedback from you on regressions at cost and things like that. So that is the goal here. So again, just to remind everyone, the service updates, the type changes are starting with Exchange Online at this point. We do have plans, and we want your feedback. Based on your feedback, we will definitely look at expanding this to rest of the Office 365 services in the future. There are some updates that we can't really wait to put it through first release. Example, some cases like, hey, 0-day patch or security updates, we just have to go roll it out as fast as we can. So those kind of updates might be exempted. So just to make sure everyone understands this. There are also changes that can't really be staged through our rings of deployment that you'll see in a bit. So it's important to understand that those will just continue to happen outside of the first release channel. So next, I want to take a couple of minutes explaining how we roll out changes at scale. So a change, it could be a small change or a feature, new feature improvement or a completely new service. It really starts at feature team level, kind of ideating what we want to do, how we're going to develop this. And they have an option to really create a sandbox type environment to test this out. We call it as ring zero. That's when the product is really very early on. The code is still kind of being checked in and being tested. See how it looks like and being tested by the feature team. We're talking about the scale of tens of people, right? Then the next ring is really the Office 365 team. Here, now, once the feature team decides, they are convinced that this feature is ready for broad exposure to hundreds of people, thousands of people in the Office 365 team, then this change gets rolled through the next ring. We call it this Office 365 ring 1. Again, here, we are taking in internal feedback, talking to folks within the team, and making updates, continually making updates, making it better. So the next ring is, the change goes to the entire Microsoft. Now we are really talking about hundreds of thousands of users all over the globe, very, very complex environment that are like typical of most of the large organizations of Office 365 customers. So we really, at this point, we really hope to validate this at a much larger scale in a very distributed environment and really take an opportunity to fix any remaining issues before it really gets, we feel like it's ready for exposure to our customers in ring 3. This is our first release ring. When a change comes to this ring, it's already gone through, as you can see, a bunch of validation, testing, a lot of iteration, a lot of updates. It's really, we are not really running through a change, exposing a change to first release to test it. As we said earlier, it's not a beta program. It is really the features that are ready for production, fully backed by our SLA promises. So that's really important to understand. And at this point, we feel like this feature is ready for broad exposure. So this is when either first release entire tenant or select people option that we just announced today, all of these users will get exposure to the new features or the new changes in this ring. And we are really looking at this point, it has hit a very good slice in production, what we call it slice in production, a good representation of our entire production that has gone through really scale testing that's much, much more than Microsoft scale. Then once the change survives this ring, then it gets really ramped up to our final ring, which is a worldwide ring. So as you can see, the promotion, the release criteria, and the bar gets really higher as the change travels through each of these rings. And we are paying a lot of attention to various signaling, various signals, various listening systems we have in each of these to make decision on whether that should get to the next ring or not. So again, the change really kind of saturates through these rings, and as you can imagine, it's really complicated. We are just, as I talked about this earlier, we're talking about tens of thousands of machines, all over the world. If you're interested in really understanding all the things that go behind the scenes, I think there's another session later today at 5 p.m. behind the curtains on Exchange Online. I recommend that. You'll get to hear about all the various investments that's really supporting how we are pushing the change through to the entire Office 365 service. So next, I really want to talk about.
I think let's take a few questions at this point. So we've kind of introduced the concept that there's two types of change going through first release, and we have a new type that's expanding to more changes. And then, of course, the rings of validation. So I want to open it up to maybe some questions before we move on to other topic areas.
Good idea.
So I saw this one first, and then we'll go around the room kind of this way. So.
What options do we have if it's just a first release and it's got some business impacting things in one of our applications? What options do we have to do this, say?
Yeah. So let me repeat the question. So the question
You're
was...
actually jumping ahead of the presentation there. We do have an option with our feedback tools to and change management, that we have change alerts group and things like that we're going to talk about. You can come back and say, hey, it's really impacting. There are a variety of options. If it is impacting your business, you're not able, then obviously you should go through your support, ticket creation process and all whatnot. But if it is a small, it's, hey, I have some feedback, then you should leverage this feedback up that we're going to talk about in a bit. But yeah.
Yep. So, yep. All right.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's always there. You can always opt out.
Yeah, so opt-out is usually available for larger experiences like Office 365 Delve, but it's for the smaller changes, it's not there, right? Those are continuously rolling out. So if there's something that actually breaks you with those, creating a support ticket is your best option if it's actually broken your environment. So that's your best option there. So yes, this gentleman.
What ring is the government community cloud in?
It's a great question. Actually, Government Community Cloud is not the first release doesn't apply to the Government Cloud. Government Cloud is actually the final ring. It's the worldwide ring. So it's really a separate environment. We manage it differently, right? It's not part of the first release program. So we are talking about the multi-tenant.
So it's not an option if you're GCC to have first release.
Yeah.
So you should use another tenant.
That's right.
I pay attention to the blog and what changes are coming, but is there going to be a mechanism that lets us know first release? If I'm first release, I want to know what changes are there so that I know what to look for when to test.
So the question was, how do I know what changes are coming to first release? So for the new experiences that are in first release, we are able to mark those as sometimes on the roadmap, and there haven't been very many of them to date, so there hasn't really been a lot on there. For the service updates that we mentioned, the new things, those aren't usually on the roadmap, and those aren't really, we're not going to communicate those because most of them are just bug level fixes. So the main thing is to continue to look at the roadmap and the blog. But we're not, again, it's going to, I know there was a change recently with, I think we added an emoji smiley face to OA, and that wasn't on there. And again, that was considered such a small addition. That's not something we would flag normally, but we flag things like video groups, changes of that nature. So that's the best thing. I would say continue to watch the roadmap, and we're trying to make sure that it's getting better at highlighting which things are in first release. We've added a little flag, but I know that it's not super visible, and so we're looking at how could we make that flag a little bit more visible for you. So definitely something we want to make easier to understand. Thank you for your feedback.
Just one question here, then.
Yeah. So let's go over here, and then I saw another hand just pop up over there.
Here, yeah, he has a question. Go ahead.
I don't know who had a question over here.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, I'm concerned with further communications directly to our end users, like you did with Flutter. Are you going to continue to do that, or are you going to pull back on that?
So
the question to repeat the question, it was about tell us more about the plans around using communications to end users when new features are being released into Office 365. So for Office 365, we are definitely going to do forms of communication through the product to help customers understand what's changed and give users visibility into what's new with the service and get them to use and try out these new features. So there's some new technologies that are being released called the notification and help panes. I think they're getting covered at a different topic here. So they're basically today where you have the up in the top of the nav bar where you have kind of your smiley face. There's going to be a new notification, the drop down that'll tell users, oh, you have email, you have calendar. There's also going to be an additional option under the help button, so the question mark today, that's going to tell users if they go there, they'll see what's new. Whether or not we'll use email, like we did with Clutter, is going to depend a lot on how that we see we get a lot of customer response. We're seeing what works, what doesn't work, and testing that out. Now I know for Clutter, for example, when we did it in first release, we learned a lot about, okay, these are the things that IT would like to see in order to deliver the message with like their branding on it, and so we went and changed the product based on customer feedback to enable IT to add their logos to the emails and things like that.
It's not just branding, it's about getting the support infrastructure ready for the change when users call in about these features that they don't really understand.
Right, yeah. So it's like, how do you prepare your help desk, for example, is what you're saying, yeah, so that you can actually support those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to what Andy said, we have received a lot of great feedback around declutter rollout, and we are continually looking at making improvements around in-product notifications, starting with some branding and things like that. But some of the technology that's coming on board is going to help us also. And to your point on, hey, how do I prepare? The first release is a great way to standard use. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, reason why we are excited about this launch today, because now we expect most of our even larger organizations to choose this option and have a lot of the users who need to be prepared and trained for these kind of feature rollouts, so they get exposure to these things before it gets broadly rolled out. So we'll continue to watch the feedback channel again and see what we can do there. But definitely the in-product notification is it's an interesting area of investment for us to we're looking at.
And if you have more thoughts, concerns about Clutter in particular, you can come talk to us at the booth afterwards. Actually, manage Office 365.
Yeah, I think in fact
we like feedback on that one because that was a new.
I think we have the product manager for declutter also. He's here, so he'll probably be
we have someone who works
joining
on
us
here,
to help address those declutter related questions or escalations.
So there was one over here that was there, and then I saw your hand, and then your hand. So okay, and then I think we'll move on after 1, 2, 3 more questions, and then we'll move on. So all right, so that one over there.
So my opinion is first release all across the board right now. If I was to switch it to select users first release, is there a way of going that's going to impact my lots of users versus if I go to a small set?
So let me repeat the question. So the question was, hey, I'm in first release entire organization today. What's going to be the impact that I'm going to see if I was to switch my organization to first release select people?
So the answer to that is, again, as we said, the both opt-in and opt-out could take up to 48 hours to take effect in terms of what kind of new experience you get exposure to or not exposure to. There should not be much of an impact in receiving most of the updates. But if you have been experiencing, for example, Sway for Business, now you may not see that because you opted out of that. Does it make sense? So when you opt out, move some of the users. So now you moved from entire organization to select set of users. Only the select set of users that you have opted in will see those new experiences.
But my current users are first release won't lose anything. I mean, I'm thinking like Clutter. I mean, Clutter's not a good example, but
Yeah.
Some stuff will be lost, right? So if they had something like access to, I'm trying to think of a good example right now, but Delve, prior to when we released it worldwide a month ago, they would have then lost access to be able to use Delve, right? It would have disappeared from their UI.
By the way, lost as in there's no data loss or anything like that. We're just talking about experience not showing up anymore. Yeah. So if the user comes back again into that first release option, it should be able to pick up from where they left. So.
Okay. All right, 2 more. Green shirt and then blue shirt.
Is there anything coming to be able to help manage the time frame that our potential first release people will get the updates in? Because there's a pretty wide range of time between when updates get pushed. In my organization, some people don't get the update for a month, whereas others got it, a month previous. Is there things to help compress the timeline so that we can have some of our effectively pilot users get involved much more similar time?
Right. So let me just repeat the question. So the question was, hey, we're using first release, but we see that there's often a gap between how the feature actually gets rolled out to all of the users inside of our organization. Has anything been done to change that experience or let you manage that experience? I'll let you talk, since that's actually very much related to this slide here in the saturation.
Yeah, I think I talked about this also in the earlier slide, where it's really, our goal is to iterate as fast as we can and keep it in a matter of weeks, not like months and with some of the features. But again, it depends on the complexity of the feature, what sort of feedback we're getting to really keep that going, right?
So you're talking about the entire feature rolling from
first release to when.
I'm talking about if the users are in first release.
Got it.
Can we compress the timeline that they all get the feature?
Oh, I see. Okay, I got it. So that, I mean, if you have a set of users, they should all get it at the same time now. But for the most part, I mean, again, it might, unless you have like thousands of users, then maybe you're in different partitions, then might take longer. Some users will experience it today, some others will experience it, later in a couple of days and things like that. But if it is a significant new change that is being flighted, what we call as flighting, then you should experience it at a fairly consistent same time period. Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Any other questions, or should we keep?
One last one.
Okay.
Somewhat similar to the question about directly emailing to our users. We also have in our tenant service things like, hey, sign up for a trial of Power BI.
Yeah.
That's pretty dangerous. It's great for Microsoft because everybody does it, but if your company's not actually supporting that, it causes quite a hornet's nest right there. Is there any plans to do more of that or less of that?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean the whole in-product notification is it's a kind of a hot area that we're looking at right now.
So that specific experience. The question was, hey, tell me a little bit more about the sign up for Power BI. So that specific experience is trying to get target users that the system detective thought would benefit from the capabilities there. But obviously there might be organizations that are like, oh, don't expose something like this to my users. I think you'll continue to see examples where there will be options to have users try things out inside of those. There are some controls that are available for IT on TechNet to be able to control some of those. But I can't say, yep, you'll always be able to turn those off or on. It kind of depends on exactly what's the new sort of service that they're offering in that kind of an instance that you're referring to there. So if you have really major concerns about that, it'd be interesting to talk with you after the session about it and to understand what the challenge is there for your organization. So, all right.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, let's keep going. So, clicker.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, someone asked about the feedback options earlier. So, we are going to talk about a couple of feedback options here. The first one is the feedback app as part of the admin surface itself. Mufi will be here in a minute to demo that experience. The idea there is to really get feedback about the type of changes that all the changes that we are rolling through first release. You can, for example, declutter or some of the other features we talked about. If you have any specific feedback, you're encouraged to give it there. Also, you can give feedback on change management tools and processes, investments that we're making. If you have anything, please feel free to tag change management and submit it there as well. We are using Bing Feedback as a backend infrastructure to support this. So we are looking at analyzing text at scale, machine intelligence, text extraction to figure out, hey, what is the common theme on feedback? If the same feedback is received hundreds of times, then that's an important signal for us to look at. Then product teams can act on it, things like that. So we're really hoping you'll leverage that. Obviously, the other one that exists today is Yammer Network or Change Alerts. In fact, today morning we had actually breakfast with folks on this topic, Change Alerts group. A lot of customers, quite a few customers were there, and there was a lot of great feedback. In fact, a couple of actionable feedback that we got out of that just today morning talking to a couple of you folks. So I really hope you continue to leverage that to That's something that we are monitoring almost on a daily basis, and connecting more and more engineers will start to monitor that and take action on that. So you should, if you're not already part of it, you should join. Who are part of this Yammer Change Alerts group already? Oh, okay. Some T-shirts. Time for some T-shirts distribution here. And did you too? Thank you. So if you're not, then you should definitely go subscribe there. And there's some more T-shirts we'll give out late. So now I'm going to invite Mufi again onto the stage to walk through the feedback app demo. Thanks, Mufi.
Thanks, Raj. So to resonate again what Raj was saying, feedback is super important to us. So please continue giving us feedback. I'm going to show you how feedback works in the admin app. Try this other one. All right. So to give feedback, simply go to the O365 Admin Center, and the feedback app exists on pretty much every page. So you could be on the dashboard, for example, and you see a change that we did not communicate to you, or a change that somehow disrupted your daily productivity, like a move of a button or something. Simply open the feedback app. You can rate, 1 to 5. You can provide verbatim feedback. Like Raj said, there is a lot of analysis that happens on the back end. So you can provide verbatim feedback. And then we recommend that you provide your email address so that if there is any follow-up, we can follow up with you about that feedback also really easily. So you can provide any email address that you want and hit submit. We look at this feedback very frequently, actually almost on a weekly basis, and it all gets aggregated. So we see aggregated feedback on a weekly basis. Thanks. Handing it out to Andy now.
Okay. Thanks, Mufi.
Great. Thank you. Oh. All right, so now we'll sort of wrap up with some communications and toolkit, and then talk a little bit about sort of the role of change in IT in Office 365. So just taking a look here at the toolkit. Hopefully some of you have come by the booth and picked this up. We've got a little printed version of it, but here's the slide for you. This is sort of our service management toolkits, all of the really key resources that we hope all of you become very familiar with and check on a daily basis, making sure that you have the roadmap.office.com bookmarked, the blog, the message center, service health dashboard, and the admin app on your phone, and of course the Yammer network. So talk a little bit about the roadmap, some of the improvements there. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch over here to, there we go, so you guys can see that. So this is the Office roadmap. If you're not familiar with it, I'm just going to refresh it really quickly so it brings up all the items. We did some updates to make this mobile optimized. We added social sharing and search. So for example, if I want to go look at Delve, we can see that there are 3 items Delve rolling out. We can go and take a look at those. We link out to the blog posts about them, as well as now you have individual links for each item. So this makes it really easy to share, for example, with your organization or with someone, and email them a link and ask them to, hey, take a look at this feature. I think it's relevant to you. You can, again, jump around to the various parts of the roadmap. Then instead of going back to the slides, I'm just going to keep going here. You can also, hopefully you're familiar with Message Center. So this is the Message Center inside of the admin if you're not already familiar with it. It's just down here. And then you can see all of the messages that we've communicated. So you can see stay informed, prevent fix issues, plan for change, and I'll talk a little bit more about what those different labels mean. But you can then go into a message. So here's the what's new in March. So for example, every month we do kind of a wrap-up of what were the changes that we released into Office 365. So if you check the what's new and you want to see what the changes were, it takes you to our monthly wrap-up that we publish on the blog. So you can see here, these were all of the updates that were rolled out across the various services. So that's kind of a monthly newsletter delivered to you through the Message Center, so you can stay up to date on that. Quick question, yeah?
Just a comment. It really would be great if you guys would group them by service and add dates for when they're going to come out and make it so it's possible to just sort and know on the roadmap.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you. Dates are definitely very, very tricky to put when dates, but you could always put dates of when we announce them, for example, right? But it comes to everyone at a slightly different time usually, but yeah. But no, that's good feedback. So make it easier for you to see them on the roadmap. So those were the main things I wanted to share there. Talked about the blog. Talked about Message Center. It's really, again, the Message Center is something we continue to improve at, but a lot of what we're really trying to make sure we do there is have targeted and timely. So there are lots of communications that you might get over here that no one else is going to see because we've designed those communications based on the telemetry we see from your specific tenants. And so there's changes where we see usage of certain features. Like there was this little feature inside of OA called People View. That was just a different way of putting it in the nav bar, and we didn't see a lot of usage, and so we deprecated that feature, and that's what we do now, right? It's based on usage in Office 365, how features get used, and so we found all the users that were using the feature, and we let them know about a month before we deprecated that feature that was going to go away, and the alternate workaround for it. So there's very targeted and timely communications, and they're always looking to improve that and make that better. And so that's an area you'll continue to see us invest in, and something we want to make sure that Message Center delivers on. When we talk about the types of communications, I kind of mentioned the stay informed, plan for change. So this is just to give you some examples so that you know what to expect in the different categories. We have both planned and unplanned communications, obviously. So for the planned ones, we let you know sort of, hey, this is a new feature. There's really no action for you to take, just something for you to be aware. There's an ability to sort of flag which communications need actual admin action, and so they get a little yellow triangle with exclamation points. So those are the ones you really have to make sure you pay attention to, because we're asking you, the admin, please do something. We need you to take an action in order for your service to maintain continuity. So those are very important. And then the prevent and fix issue, that category has become more and more of what we're seeing again from our telemetry. So when we are able to see, for example, messages queuing up in your service, or we see a DNS issue with your DNS settings, we're able to proactively notify you at detection and say, hey, we need you to do something. We're noticing this problem with your service. And so we send those messages as we detect them. And that's really kind of, again, it's a continual investment. We're finding always more and more scenarios there that we can start detecting and let our customers know ahead of time. Yeah, quick question? So the question was, is there a way for us to get emails from Message Center? So today there is not. Today Message Center is a pull, but it is absolutely feedback that we have heard, and we are deeply invested in finding a way to let you configure, proactively notify for Message Center, but it's not currently available. The only way you can currently do that today, and I have a slide on this, is through if you wanted to use the API. So I'll talk a little bit more about the API in a minute. The last thing, just around time frame here. So when action is required, we will do a minimum of 30 days. We usually try to do more than 30 days, but that's sort of our minimum for when action actually is required. For example, we are deprecating the SharePoint Online sites. It was a legacy technology that we brought to Office 365, not a lot of usage. we were deprecating it, and we gave those customers 2 years notice that we were going to get rid of it. Now we're not going to always do 2 years either, but I'm just saying we try to do more when it makes sense, depending on the amount of effort and impact to customers, but we sort of strive for that minimum of 30. And if you think if you think we missed something that you needed that 30-day notice, that's something we want to hear on Yammer, on the support feedback, because we do make mistakes, and we want you to tell us about it. Or if you think there was a change that we didn't tell you 30 days, but you think for some reason should have been, that will help us improve and understand, okay, these types of changes are more disruptive. And we've already noticed that with certain things and made improvements to sort of delay those changes a little bit, or give more notification ahead of time about those types of changes. So I mentioned the admin app as part of the toolkit. So this is, again, was just updated in March. And has message center, support tickets, ability to manage your users, and there'll be an update coming this summer that will make it so that for service health you'll actually get notifications in app when there's a service incident. So again, we're going to continue to iterate and improve the admin app on your mobile device.
Mine doesn't look like that. How quickly? Is that because I'm not on your first release, or it wasn't?
No, this update, so, the UI might be slightly different between the different Android, iOS, and Windows Phone, but there is the update, as long as you have, what version do you have?
I'm checking now. I'm on the Lumia, though.
Which operating system?
It's
8.1? So they have it's on 8.1, right? Yeah, so you might just want to update the app. Office 365 admin app. You can come talk to us afterwards. We'll get you loaded up with the app. So just come talk to us.
And it's being demoed in the booth in the managed section.
Yeah, exactly. We've got it in the booth, and we can demo it and load it on anyone's phone. So I mentioned the API to your question a minute ago. So there is an API available. This is the exact same API we're using for the phone, for the message center that you see in the website. So it's the exact same feed that we use in our front ends. So you can use this API. There's going to be a session that's going to talk more about it on Thursday. And if you want, you can come talk to us if you want the exact session number. And so you can learn how to use this API, plug it into your existing existing management systems. And this would be a way if you wanted to set up proactive notifications while we're still working on that. You could do it through this API. So this is definitely available. Again, we definitely think there's a lot of ISVs and partners that can use this to also manage if they're managing lots and lots of customers. This is something that might be really useful for you. All right, so about to kind of wrap it up, and then we'll do kind of a final Q&A. So just kind of bringing together, just quickly recapping everything about how do we think about your role in change with Office 365. So when you think about there's a continuous cycle of either before a particular change, during that particular change, and after it. And what are we doing at each of these stages to help operate the service? And what do you want to make sure you're doing for your organization so that you're managing those changes the most effective way possible? So for before changes, obviously Microsoft, we're making sure that we are telling you how we're going to manage the service, that we're notifying you 30 days in advance before a change that requires you to take action, and that we're publishing the majority of those changes to the roadmap so that you have visibility into what's coming. That's sort of our promise to you that we've been walking through here today. And then your role is to make sure that you're consuming those materials, right? That you're checking the message center, checking a roadmap, that you use first release in one of your tenants, because again, as we mentioned, there's going to be more features coming through first release. Not all of those are going to be communicated because they're more bug fixes. They're just part of the service update rhythm. And so make sure you're using first release so that you have early visibility into the changes through that mechanism as well. Make sure you're thinking about, at the very beginning I talked about, hey, you designed your change management processes in an era where it was big projects every couple of years. And so you want to start thinking about how do you evolve your own internal change management processes, at least for Office 365 and other cloud services, to manage a more rapid cadence and not have to design things in a way that you have to spin up giant projects for much smaller changes that are coming. And I'm sure many of you are already far down that journey, but it's just something we want to make sure customers are thinking about. Particularly like in Message Center, a lot of times when we have sort of like middle to larger features, like for Office 365 Video, we built an email template, and so we provide help content to you as IT that you can leverage instead of having to create your own, or at least it gives you something to start with, so you don't have to spend as much time doing it. So there's definitely materials out there that we try to create, so you don't have to go and create a bunch of your own help content, for example, and waste a lot of time doing that when the UI is going to change pretty frequently. And then also, just make sure you understand system requirements for Office 365. There's a policy as part of the service descriptions, and it's again the policy itself doesn't really change, but we're not communicating to you about system requirement changes. You just have to make sure you're adhering to the policy. So just make sure you're very familiar with the system requirements policy online. So during changes, it's really, we're really focused on making sure that we roll it out smoothly and hopefully quickly, as you were mentioning earlier. We want to make sure that it rolls out smoothly and quickly, and that we're monitoring our telemetry. That's really the most important thing, is making sure that we catch any potential conflicts or issues, and as it's going through those rings of validation, that's what we're really focused on. For your organizations, we want to make sure that, again, making sure you're reviewing those the additional information links. I was talking with some customers, and they were talking about how they found out about the Skype for Business change. They found out about it through some other random blog. I was like, well, in Message Center, we linked out to the exact steps of how to turn off the switch and stuff like that. And so they weren't even using the additional information. They didn't realize that link was even there. So make sure you check that out and take the actions required that we provide in those additional information links. And then, if you do need to update your help desk, for example, you want to make sure you do that. And if you do experience a break fix, like we actually break something for your tenant, you should open a support escalation with us. That's the absolute right thing to do, to notify us that you're experiencing a real issue during a change. And we obviously are monitoring those, and that if we see a spike of service requests, then we will halt the rollout of a change. And then after it's really about, at the beginning I mentioned the listen aspect of change management. How do we continuously improve the service, improve the change management rollout experience itself, make it faster, make it more transparent, make it more reliable. So we're always looking at that telemetry to do that, listening to your feedback as well, and we're updating the roadmap every week to make sure that we're moving features as they're rolling out and becoming available, that we're updating their statuses and adding new features to the roadmap so that as you're checking it, you're able to see more information there. And then, for your role, we're just making sure that you've looked at, hey, when this change came through, we got stuck in our own internal process because we didn't have a good way to communicate to our finance users or something of that nature. So making sure that you're refining your change management process to be quick and light as we make changes. That's kind of our ask there. And of course, I think we've said it many times today. Join us in Yammer and discuss with us sort of what's working as a general process, not just an individual change, but we can also have the conversation there about the general process. And that's hopefully we'll be back here a year all together, and we'll have another great conversation about all of this. So please be our change ambassadors in your organization. We really appreciate it. We thank you for coming out today and talking with us. We'll take a little bit more Q&A, but let's get Raj and Mufi up here. Again, thank you very much. We really appreciate working with us. So we'll do a few questions. Sean, all right, Sean, right in the front, and then you.
Part of the change management stuff is when we get those alerts that now every page I go to at the admin center, it keeps dinging me and stuff. Is there any work towards that to permanently say I've read that? Every time I relog in and stuff, I get those go off and the dings go off.
Yeah. So the question was about how do I see the dings, the different dings as alerts when I go to manage my service. So we actually have one of the gentlemen who works on that part with us here. So we'll have you talk with him. But yeah, they're trying to make sure that that's a smooth experience. And of course, you're seeing that because you're in first release.
So before folks walk out, there is a change management focus group session tomorrow. If you have
Yes.
If you want to have more
if you wanna
intimate
come talk with us,
conversation.
if you want to have a longer, more in-depth conversation with us
Please
tomorrow,
come to that, yeah.
come up and we'll give you information so you can come join our focus group.
Tomorrow at 3:30 in E270. Thank you.
So there was another question. Oh,
He
that
has
was
a
you.
question.
Yeah.
So are there any plans to implement a change law? Because the message center is good for being proactive for the admin, but for like service desk and to troubleshooters, they could benefit from a change law to see what actually was changed in that tenant.
Great question.
So the question was about, hey, is there a way for me to see sort of the after the fact changes that came to my tenant? So it's definitely
Yeah.
something we've heard before.
Yeah, this is, again, like as I said, we don't have answers for everything and we're not announcing every single thing today. We are working on some cool tech around how do we really make it very personalized for each of our tenants. You will get to hear about it once we have something to really announce, but you should really check out the session later today at 5 p.m. On how we internally have visibility into changes that are happening, and yeah, definitely something in top of our mind. So
My recommendation today would be take the message center and send those to your support desk, right? Take the message center messages and send them to your help desk for now. And I mean, I know it's a hack of a workaround, but at least then they'll know all the things that you know about what has changed.
great question.
So I'd start there, and we know we've
continue
heard
to have
the
the dialogue.
feedback. So
You had a question?
yes. Can you come up here so we can hear you? I'm sorry.
I want to confirm for every change such as bug fix and patch deployment, we post the notification in message center.
No. So the question was, Right. So the question was, hey, for the service updates that we're doing, the new ones that we're going to start doing through first release, are you going to communicate those via message center? The answer is no. For most of those smaller changes, we're not. We're going to continue to focus on the more of the UI and the larger features that are rolling out. We're not all of the little fixes. We're not going to be communicating those through message center. So the question was, hey, is this available for Office 365 operated by 21 ViaNet in China, also known as Gallatin? No. So this does not apply to Gallatin. Gallatin is like GCC, the Government Community Cloud, in that those get the updates at the very end after they've gone through all of the other. It's the last part that we saturate of the worldwide ring. So it gets them at the very end of the updates. So you, and then you, and then you over there. Oh, you're at the mic. No, you get to go first because you're at mic. Thanks.
Well, the mic. Okay, good. My question's around the service descriptions. They change fairly often. Those are pretty long documents, and it's really kind of hard to tease apart what changed. I mean, because you don't have the old document and there's no diff file. What's the best way to consume that information?
So the service descriptions are specifically, they're really aimed, like we don't put every little feature that we release into the service descriptions. So the service descriptions are really more meant for, hey, I'm trying to evaluate if I want to go to Office 365.
But they contain information around capacities and when we have larger, like we have an infinite OneDrive, that was there, and attachment sizes and Exchange over there. There's a lot of stuff there that even active users of 365 tenants still need to know and be aware of the changes. But it's just a very hard document to consume.
All right, that's good feedback. Yeah, I don't think there's really a good answer for you today to know those diffs. That's good feedback. It would be, would you mind coming and talking to us after here just to understand a little bit more of what's really useful in there? Thanks. All right, and then you. Oh no, you and then you. All right.
Is there any talk about doing larger features quarterly rather than monthly?
No. So the question was, is there any talk about doing features within like doing things once a quarter or once a month? No, features are going to roll out to the service as the engineering teams are done developing them and they pass all the rings of validation. And there's not going to be like boxing them together and delivering them all at once like in the old patch days. Yeah. They're just gonna continuously roll out as teams are ready.
What's the delta between first release and worldwide version?
Okay. So as Raj was saying, it's about a week for the service updates, and for other things, it completely depends on the iteration. So you have something like App Launcher, which was about 3 months in first release, and then you have Delve, which was closer to about 8 months while they iterated on it. So it really depends. And then other smaller features are like are a week or 2 weeks, like the really small UI changes.
Yeah. There is a time range, but there's no fixed. Thank you.
That's why the blog is useful in Message Center, because we did send like messages to the first release customers when we started releasing Delve to them, and then we sent another set of messages when we started releasing Delve to the rest of the customers. So we like told them, hey, you're gonna get your first release users, you're getting this feature, and then we told all the customers, hey, now we're rolling this out to everyone else.
I think we're out of time, but we are around here to answer any questions. Thank you so much.